Well, welcome back. Thank you for coming back. I have lots of people here, and that is awesome. Helpful for me. Okay, where we left off was halfway through chapter 8. I have the rest of this PowerPoint, and I have another PowerPoint kind of quick one that we're going to do. And then I have a little quiz or a test with you. So it's I've put some questions into a Word document. We're going to look at them and kind of open answer questions. We're going to do some discussion style question answering, okay? Who's ready? I am, for sure. So we can take this test next week. Okay, so first things first. We left off on employment skills. So the chapter 8 was all about how to be employable, how to get and keep a job with construction, what kind of skills are going to be necessary to have a job in construction, how to look for jobs that are appropriate for you. So that's kind of where we left off. Sorry, my dogs are being annoying. So we left off at work ethic. So what does work ethic mean to you guys? Kind of chime in right now. What does it mean to have work ethic? And yeah, you're looking at a screen, but kind of in your own words.
The first one in and the last one that leaves.
Okay, I like that. Kind of being there on time and staying late to help clean up afterwards. I like that. What else would you say? What does work ethic mean?
How well you can handle yourself under pressure.
Yeah, okay. Being able to handle yourself under pressure on a work site, definitely. Anyone else?
How hard you want to work and how much you want to put yourself into it.
I like that.
Work ethic.
Yeah. How much effort are you putting into this?
How much are you willing to do for yourself?
Yeah. How much are you willing to do? How much effort are you willing to put into whatever task is ahead of you? Yeah, I like that. Thanks for those descriptions, guys. And that's really similar to how your textbook describes it and how they describe it on these PowerPoints. So work ethic is putting forth your absolute best effort. It's taking initiative. So that's kind of what Billy had said in the beginning. He had said being the first one there, the last one out. That's a part of initiative. And initiative is taking those first steps, being the first person that's there to help out, being a leader, being that person that is putting effort to resolve problems and figure out what needs to happen to finish a task. So somebody who doesn't have a lot of initiative is going to be someone who sits back in the corner and waits for other people to take the lead. You're not going to have initiative if you just kind of do the bare minimum. You show up, sometimes on time, sometimes not. You do the bare minimum of what they ask you to, but you don't go above and beyond. You don't try to help out where you're not initially asked for. You just kind of do the work, maybe not at the best, and you leave.
My mom always told me, she said, if you do the littlest in life, you'll have the littlest things. You do the biggest in life, you have the biggest things.
I like that.
Much work ethic as you put into it is what you have. You as in like your material stuff and everything. You have better material stuff if you work harder for it.
Yeah, definitely. I like that so much. What you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. If you put in not a lot of effort, you're not going to get a great reward back, right? So it's about putting in as much effort as you can, and you're going to get, what you put in is what you're going to get out. I like that. So what their kind of example here is showing up late for work or being absent affects your coworkers and it affects your project schedule, regardless of your skill level. So regardless of, even if you're a beginner in whatever job you just started in, a worker is of little value unless he or she is on the job and putting forth the effort. So it's your first day on a construction job and you don't know anything about what you're doing. You barely did any training. And you're there and you're ready to learn. It's, even if you don't know anything, you're putting forth the effort to learn. You're doing everything that you possibly can. You're asking for help. You're asking to help other people. It's not about how much you know. It's about how much you try. Okay, that's work. That's work.
That was like my cousin used to work for this construction crew, and his jig leader, you have to have a jig leader every morning to do this stuff, and his jig leader was always 30 minutes late, so he never had anything set up when it was supposed to be set up, and then they were always there, and he used to tell me, he's like sometimes my jig leader would just walk around the job site for the last 45 minutes and not do shit. No, he was like, and then he'll come up to me and ask me to do the rest of the job.
And that was probably frustrating for him, right?
Yeah.
Having to fill that and not having a good leader, having a leader that just kind of, messes around and doesn't really do a lot of the work, expects other people to do work for him. That's not good work ethic. And that frustrates people that have to pick up the work after him, right? So don't be that guy. Yeah,
And
don't be
like
that guy that.
when we start working for a construction crew, all of us are going to be assigned to a job. So when one of us isn't there, who do they got to put up the boards, or who do they got to set up the stuff?
Exactly. And that's something we had chatted about in the beginning of talking about employability, is that it's called absenteeism, right? When people are absent regularly, there's nobody there to do the work, so your projects get delayed and you can't actually get the project done. So that's a big part of work ethic too. It's just being there and being on the job site and not being absent. Thanks, Billy, for your input. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, let's see if it lets me. There we go. A big part of work ethic is also about conflict resolution and taking that initiative to help solve issues. And sometimes those issues can be between coworkers or between you and a manager. It's not always problems that have to do directly with construction, but people have conflicts with their coworkers in every type of job that you have. I don't know if any of you have ever had specific conflicts with coworkers. I know that you feel it's kind of different and you guys are kind of all friends. Sometimes you get in arguments. But if you've ever been in like an actual, paid employment, that's not the youth build program, and have ever had issues with a coworker, this might be familiar to you. Sage, did you have something to add?
I'm just having a really hard time hearing you again.
Oh, am I cutting out?
Yeah, for
I
me
can
at
hear
least.
her.
Let me
I
try
think
and
it's your
switch.
phone.
Yeah, it's this weird computer. Let me try. Give me 1 second. Let me try and switch to my headphones because the microphone is close by.
You have been coming in a little bit blurry, but I've been able to hear you the whole time.
Okay. As long as you can hear me. Let's try this.
I didn't know that when you're talking about work ethic, I didn't know you were going to bring in like the civil part, and I was going to bring that up, like how you take situations civilly and how you can resolve the situation.
Yeah, did you have something to add to that? Also, can you hear me better through the headphone?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I could hear you the whole time. I don't think it's that.
Okay, the other videos I was cutting in and out as well, so I think it's this computer. So I'll try with the headphone for a while. But yeah, Billy, what did you want to add about being civil with coworkers?
I don't know. I didn't really want to add anything.
Okay, sounds good. Well, if you have anything to add after this, you are welcome to. But a big part about any job is being able to get along with your coworkers, and sometimes that means you'll have a conflict, because conflicts are inevitable. I mean, people have different opinions, and so it's all about how you resolve them, right? So the first part to analyzing and trying to figure out a problem with a coworker is, trying to figure out how did it start? Why is this problem happening? Is it because we just don't get along and our personalities don't match, or is it a specific project we didn't agree on? Right. So try to find the root of what the issue is. Was it kind of sudden, or has this been building? Has there just been kind of tension between us because we don't really get along? How could this have been prevented? Can we kind of step into each other's shoes and see each other's sides to fixing this one issue that we have? Or is it just going to be something where maybe you guys just have different personalities and you don't get along, but it's you need to be able to work together in order to get this project done, right? And sometimes that means putting aside your personal beliefs, putting aside the conflict that you have on a personal level, and just working with them as a coworker to get a job done. And that's a big part about being an adult as well. And I'm sure you guys have realized that you're all adults, and I'm sure you've had conflict with them. But part of adult life is sometimes you have to deal with people you don't like, and that just is what it is. That has probably happened to you in a lot of places that wasn't exactly a job, but there are some people that you just have to deal with. You have to put up with them in order to get a job done, in order to figure something out. And sometimes that means, going back and really trying to resolve this conflict. Sometimes we tried to resolve it, we just don't like each other, and that's okay. You can go home after your work day and forget about them. You don't have to get along with everybody perfectly. Might be a little bit different if you have a conflict with a supervisor or a boss. That might be a little bit more difficult to resolve, because this takes another level of professionalism to deal with, because your supervisor, they have expectations of you, of course, and you don't want to get into conflict with a supervisor that might make you lose your job, right? So this kind of goes back a lot to sometimes we don't like people, but we definitely have to deal with them. I haven't liked every boss I've had. I'm lucky with Brandy. She's an awesome boss, but not every boss I've had has been wonderful, right? And so sometimes it's about putting your differences aside, putting your personal issues aside, and working with them because you have a project in front of you. But in order to solve specific conflicts, you want to be able to bring those conflicts to your supervisor and bring your issues to them in a really organized way. So, lashing out at your supervisor and yelling at them because you're frustrated probably isn't the best way to go. You want to make sure your thoughts are organized before you come to them. You want to make sure you're thinking, is this a reasonable thing to be upset about? I mean, am I upset because they accidentally ate my applesauce in the fridge? Or am I upset because they undermined me on the job site and they made me, feel kind of crappy in front of people? Those are two very different problems that are going to take different solutions and different ways of approaching them. But regardless
I
of
have
what
a
your issue is,
question.
yeah, go for it, Sage.
What if it's like a safety issue? Like the boss doesn't understand what's actually going on the site or something.
Ooh, that's a good question. What would you guys say?
How would you approach him about it? Or
Yeah. How would you guys approach that? I want to see if one of you guys can answer. If your boss is having, you feel like there's a safety issue and they're not listening to you, or there might be an issue on the job site that has to do with safety, how would you handle that? I want to see if someone else can answer that.
You stand up for yourself and you just say what the hell the problem is. Like, I'm not doing that until it's resolved. Like, that's a safety issue. I'm not putting my life on the line for your mess up.
Resolve
Okay.
the situation, and if it doesn't come in that perspective, then you're gonna have to, other jobs like fast food and stuff, you're gonna have to call corporate. But with construction, you're gonna have to call OSHA. So I guess if it does have to be taken into those measures, then call OSHA and let OSHA know that he's trying to have you work in unsafe work conditions, and that your work conditions aren't safe, and that he's not being a good supervisor.
Interesting. Okay, so I think that both of those approaches could definitely be put into effect there. So Travis says, I think that you need to, stand up for yourself in that moment. If there's something that you feel like is going to put you at risk in that moment, be like, whoa, I'm not comfortable with that. Can we discuss this before we do it? And then if they're still, pushing on that and making it a safety issue, go to the next higher boss and bring that up. And if they're the highest boss, give OSHA a call and be like, hey, there's an issue that I'm not feeling comfortable with. So I think that both of those answers were perfect. And it's all about that kind of hierarchy, that sort of chain of,
Hey, Lily,
yeah.
isn't there a call line that they had for that particularly that'll send out like somebody to do like a look over of the
OSHA
place?
check?
Yeah, an OSHA check.
There is.
Okay.
I can't remember what the number is, but I remember they were talking about it. It started with like a W or something.
Okay. That's beyond my expertise construction wise, so I don't know. Billy says there probably is a number that would make sense if there was. But yeah, in the job setting, whether this is construction or a different job that puts you into a safety hazard, definitely speak up in the moment, respectfully, of course. Don't start lashing out at your boss. Be like, hey, we should talk about this and maybe see if there's a better way to do this because this feels unsafe. And then if things persist, then you can take it to the next higher boss that you have, and then eventually maybe need to call OSHA. But Sage, that's a good question, because I think that that's definitely not a novel issue. I think people have definitely probably run into that, and that's going to be an important thing to know, is kind of how to handle those safety issues. So thanks for the question. But with any issue like safety or any other sort of issue on the job site, whether it's construction or really any job, if you're going to approach your supervisor with an issue that you have, and it's important to stand up for yourself, and I think this is okay to do, you need to approach the supervisor with respect, be calm, be clear in what you're saying, don't beat around the bush, be like, I have an issue with this, can we please discuss it? But be respectful, no yelling at anybody, don't come in with an attitude, just be like, hey, I've got this issue, can we just chat about it? Because maybe it's a miscommunication, right? Maybe they're not trying to
Holy
purposefully.
cow, Lily, that all cut out for me.
Is it cutting out again?
Yeah, I think we all need to put ourselves on mute in order to like.
Oh, maybe it's.
I can hear you fine.
Okay,
I
maybe
can
it's
hear
because
her
other things.
fine. I
Okay,
can hear
yeah.
everybody fine.
That's good. I think you might be right. I think maybe when other people come in, it cuts me out. So, well, everybody, if you're not speaking, will you be on mute? Even if your area is quiet, it's just in case of other background noise and stuff. That would be helpful. Perfect. That's better. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Let's see if this helps. Let me know if it doesn't. But what I was saying is to approach your supervisor with respect. If you're coming in with an attitude, they're not going to be as willing to listen. It's just about opening a conversation about what you're having. And this kind of brings us to the part about criticism. So what is, and you guys can unmute for this to speak, but what is constructive criticism to you guys? What do you think that is?
And so it's not really like talking mess about somebody. It's like say like I was doing something a certain way and Billy comes along and he's like, hey bud, check it out. Like,
I got a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And I show him the better way, but he keeps on doing the way that he was doing. So now everybody else is just laughing at him because he wanted to do it his way, but I showed him a different way. And in all honesty, both the ways work. His way is just a little bit slower.
Yep.
It's not really talking shit. It's just like, I don't know, heads up. And then once we give the heads up, it's like, okay, I already gave you a heads up. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's on your own at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to describe it. So it's helping people out by maybe offering a different solution to an issue because you didn't think that the first solution they were doing was all that great. So it's coming in and offering, hey, I think that you should try it this way. But it's not like being mean to them, and it's not being like, wow, you were so dumb. I can't believe you don't know how to do that, right? That's not what constructive criticism is. It's coming
like,
in and
me and my cousin used to work for this guy, and he told us, he was like, we were telling him, we were like, the board's not long enough. And then he was like, go to C block and get the board stretcher. And we're walking off, and I'm thinking in my mind, board stretcher? There's no such thing as a fucking board stretcher.
Yeah.
I was like, he's just fucking with us.
Right. So I would say being constructive in your criticism means that you're not having sarcasm. You're not making a joke out of it. You're coming in, you're being clear, and you're saying, hey, that's actually not an appropriate way to use this tool, for example. So let's try it this way. This is the way that we've learned, let's try it this way. It's being kind. And the word constructive means that you are helping them to think about a different way to use it. They're constructing different ways in their mind to solve this problem that they maybe weren't thinking of before. It's used very frequently, especially from supervisor to worker. So if your supervisor comes up to you and is just like, hey, remember we had chatted about doing this differently, let's try a different way. Then it's important, and this is what this section is about, it's important to be able to accept that criticism. It can be kind of a blow to the ego. If somebody comes to you, your supervisor comes to you and it's just like, hey man, you're doing that wrong. Let's do it differently. It's like, oh man, I was doing it wrong. And it can kind of be a little embarrassing or maybe hurt a little bit. But it's about being able to get past that and accept that constructive criticism and then be able to learn from it, right? So we have some examples here. So if you are somebody who is providing constructive criticism, maybe you're in a supervisor role or you were asked to train a new employee, or you're just on the job site and you see somebody who maybe is at the same level as you and you're just like, oh, I think they're forgetting how to use that. Then it might be appropriate to go up and explain to them in a proper way. So use really supporting words like, hey, I see that you're really trying to do this. Let's work together to do it the correct way. That's a really positive way of stating it. Don't overdo it. Don't be a micromanager who's going in and trying to fix everybody's ways just because. Pick your moments. Pick maybe if it's a safety issue or something that is not going to be done right, but don't micromanage people. And then offer compliments as well. Like maybe when you're about to offer criticism, you can say, hey, I see that earlier today you did this really well. And now I think that we're working on this new project. Let's try to figure out a new way to do it because this doesn't seem very safe or this doesn't seem right. But offer that kind of compliment in the beginning just so that it's not such a blow to the ego if you're offering criticism to someone. Because it's like, hey, this doesn't mean you're a bad employee. This doesn't mean you're bad at your job. There's just this one thing that you might need some help with. So let's work on it together, right? And if you're the person accepting that criticism, if a supervisor comes to you and is explaining this, think of it as a chance to learn rather than somebody trying to come and harp on you, because that's not the point, right? Somebody is trying to teach you how to do something better. I'm not perfect at my job. I'm still learning every single day. There's always opportunity to learn and grow in whatever kind of job you have. And so accepting that as being a chance to learn is the best way to kind of help you accept that kind of criticism. So again, don't take it personally. It's just about the job. And it's a good opportunity to display that work ethic we talked about, display that initiative, be like, oh, thank you so much for explaining that. Let me show you how I can take that knowledge and now change my behavior based on what you would ask me to, right? Taking direction and being able to kind of change your plan of your course after a supervisor comes and offers you criticism is a huge, important characteristic to have as an employee. Being able to take criticism and learn from it and then apply it is like the most important thing I would say employers are looking for in an employee, that willingness to learn. Right, not a lot of people do that, right? Not a lot of people choose to learn from their mistakes. And so that takes a big person, and it takes a really good employee to do that.
That's where that definition of insanity comes in.
Right?
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's why you gotta have to be able to accept constructive whatever. My bad. Because if you don't, you're just gonna keep doing the same thing over and over again. Or you know what I'm saying? Maybe not. Maybe you will end up achieving, but it's gonna be a little harder for you.
Right. Yep, you're right in that. Being able to change that, because whatever you were doing at first, wasn't working, obviously. Okay, we have a last section to this chapter, and it's about social skills. And this one kind of gets into more about social issues and concerns in the workplace. And this could be really any workplace. We're kind of getting more into the broad aspect of having a job and being an employee. We're also going to talk about team environments and being an effective leader. So we kind of have this leadership curriculum that we've worked a lot in with the civics and leadership. We have two of our leadership council people here. We have Sage and Travis here who are on our leadership council, right? So we've had discussions about leadership, and this is going to be kind of emphasizing that specifically in the workplace. So that's this last little section, and then we'll go over our test review. How is my sound? Am I cutting out as much as I was? Good. I see shaking heads. Awesome. Perfect. I'm gonna keep going. Perfect. Okay. So just kind of reading off the slides here. The construction workplace represents a cross-section of society. So what does that mean, a cross-section of society? That means that the workplace has lots of different types of people that with all different types of backgrounds. They come from different countries, even perhaps. They come from different states. They have different types of parents, different types of families, different types of cultures that they've grown up in. So every workplace, especially the construction workplace, because of all the different types of jobs you need to have on a construction site, represent a cross-section of society. So all different types of people will be on the job site. And it's true throughout the world that personal issues and challenges, of course, exist. So things like harassment, stress, drug and alcohol use are all problems in the workplace that need to be addressed and acknowledged. Okay, that's what this is all about. So the first one here is talking about harassment. So can somebody in their own words define what they think harassment is?
If I go up to
sorry, Travis, you go ahead.
Sage, go for it. I want to hear what you say.
Teasing or picking on coworkers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe even pranking them, but like going overboard with it.
Absolutely, that's part of it. Travis, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say if I basically kind of like what Sage was gonna say, like if I go up to somebody and I'm like, I don't know, and I'm being rude to them, and I'm just not really being rude, but like harassing them, like I'm just bugging them. I keep asking the same thing over and over again, and I keep getting an answer, and I keep trying to change their mind and whatever, or I keep making them uncomfortable or stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely. You guys both nailed it on the head. Those are good examples. Harassment is the general term, is it's negative behavior that may be based on things that a person can't control. So race, age, a disability, gender, religion, things like that. Those are things that people don't control, right? I don't control my race. I don't control how old I am. But harassment is somebody, picking on you or displaying negative behavior towards you based on those things that you don't have any control over. In general, it creates a negative work environment. It creates a hostile work environment. And it's typically in literally any work environment. You could be in construction, fast food, social work, retail, whatever it is unacceptable, and it will not be something that will be tolerated, and you could potentially be fired on the spot for it, rightfully so, right? There are other sorts of harassment. Sexual harassment, I'm sure, is something that you have been familiar with as well. It is illegal, right? Harassment in this sort of sense, especially sexual harassment, is illegal. You are breaking the law. And it's yeah, right? It's typically repeated if not addressed. So
Dude,
if it's something, yeah, Travis?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Go for it.
I think that they made it a new law now that like harassment in any form, you can't even own a gun now, like because of those whole gun laws and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have harassment, assault, if you've ever gotten charged with stalking, if you've ever had a protective order put on you, shit like that because of all these gun laws and stuff. I think harassment now, like people, like that's one of the things that people are really taking seriously. And I mean, I think that they've taken it seriously like in the past, but like now, it's just it's unacceptable. You don't get no chances.
Absolutely. Yep. And rightfully so, I think in a lot of areas. I mean, if you are sexually harassing someone in the workplace, you shouldn't get to work there. That's unacceptable. I would say most of the time, and kind of stereotypically, because this is often what happens, is it's a sort of male authoritative figure that picks on or sexually harasses a female subordinate, right? Somebody who is under, physically smaller typically, and somebody who is kind of under them in like the hierarchy, the chain of commands. And that is unfortunately pretty common. However, a lot of workplaces are cracking down on it, like you said, Travis. A lot of workplaces are making it absolutely unacceptable. People are speaking up about it more often than they were. And so I would say a big portion of this is less about being like, hey, don't be a harasser, because most of you guys, if not all of you guys, you're not harassers, right? That's not what this point is. This point is of this kind of PowerPoint is to talk about how to address that if it were to happen to you, or if you saw it happening to somebody else, right? Because that's the important part here. You guys don't need a lesson on not to pick on people or not to bully people. No, you guys might need right, you guys aren't like that. You might need a lesson on how to address it if it happens though. And that's what this is about. So they're saying here that, bullying is really common, but it's not reported as often. Kind of the picking on, exactly what Sage was describing, picking on you for kind of making you so, belittling you, making it so you don't feel very welcome in the workplace. Maybe that's not sexual harassment, right? But it's bullying and it's unacceptable. But that kind of stuff isn't reported as often because you don't want to be the person that goes and tattletales on this person. You just want to be a part of the team. And so those kind of things often go reported less often, but those kind of things are important for you to report and for you to speak up about, or else it's just going to continue happening to you. Yeah, Travis, what do you have to say?
I was gonna say, like, back to what you said about like it being the man and stuff like that. Like there's been incident, like personally, like I've worked at places and I've actually had female bosses try and sexually harass me, and I've had to report them and stuff. But you're right, you don't ever see that, like and when it comes to sexual harassment and shit like that, a lot of people, like, they don't really like to not like to stand up for themselves, but because of where they came from, it's not something that they feel like they're going to get punished if they do.
There it is. Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to it, at the end of the day, you always got to stand up for yourself, because if you don't, you're not going to get the things you want. And when it comes to like harassment and, situations like that, like, I don't know if you want to work in an environment like that, but if you don't stand up for yourself, it's not going to change.
Right. So thank you for pointing that part out about maybe people feel less inclined to speak up about it because they feel like they might be punished. And you're right, it happens with all different types of people. Female supervisors will pick on their subordinates just as much as male supervisors would, right? That definitely happens. But I like how you said that people feel like they might be punished, and that is a huge reason for why people don't speak up. If you've got a boss who has, control over whether or not you get to keep your job, are you going to go pick on them to HR? Pick on them as that's not what they're doing, but it might be what's coming across. Are you going to go like tattletale on them and be like, hey, this guy's making me feel uncomfortable if it's your boss? Because he might turn around and say, you shouldn't work here, and then you'll get fired. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why people are maybe not so inclined to speak up if they're having that, or if they're watching that happen to somebody else, because they don't want to be punished. They want to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of policies in place in a lot of companies now that prevent that from happening. Specifically, they're called whistleblower policies. Is kind of a way, I don't know if you guys have heard of that, a whistleblower,
Yeah.
but it's an
You talked
anonymous.
about it.
Yeah, you can go to HR, you can talk about it, and you will stay anonymous so that you don't have to, disclose your name and then potentially get fired for it. And then a lot of policies also have, if you step up and talk about it, you won't be able to get fired. Like they have protections in place that if you speak up about a sexual harassment in the workplace or any other kind of harassment in the workplace, there are policies that keep you protected so that you are more likely to step up and speak out about that kind of stuff. Because, the jobs, somebody as a human resources director, as an HR director, they want to know what's happening with their employees. They want to make sure that everybody is protected and safe, and feel safe in their workplace. And so they're going to encourage you to come forth if something like this were to happen, so that they can.
There's one thing you always got to remember too, is like when it comes to like somebody like that, like a boss or whatever, somebody just big and bad. You always got to realize that there's somebody that's out there that's always bigger and better than that person, and not necessarily like a physical way. Like I'm talking like a
Chain of
boss
command way.
Yeah. Even in a physical way, like there's always going to be that one person bigger than that other person.
Yep.
Good point. Yeah.
You just got to find them and fix the situation.
Yeah, I like that point. And I think that can sometimes be the issue, is that there are maybe people who are really high on the chain of command, so they feel a little bit invincible, and that power maybe goes to their head, and they feel like it's okay to go pick on people or whatever it may be. But being able to speak up about it, especially if it's happening to somebody that you know, I mean, if it's happening to you and you can speak up about it, that's awesome. And if there's somebody like a coworker that you know is getting sexually harassed or harassed in general, being able to speak up for them, because it can be really hard as the victim of that harassment to speak up for yourself, but being that advocate for somebody else who you know it's happening to, and maybe you've confided in you or you've seen it happen in person, speaking up for other people and having their back is really important in this too, right? So again, this isn't about, making sure you know how to not harass, but because you guys know that. It's about speaking up for yourself and speaking up for others and how to do that in an appropriate way. And typically, taking it straight to HR, if it's something like sexual harassment that's really serious, is going to be important. If you've got a coworker who's kind of picking on you and thinking, they're being sarcastic or funny, maybe being like, hey man, I don't know if you know this, but I don't really like the way that makes me feel. So if we could maybe keep those jokes to a minimum, that'd be awesome. Right? If you can, if it's something that's minor that you don't feel needs to be taken straight to HR, bring it up to them. Find that courage, or maybe speak up for somebody else in that instance. Be like, hey, she doesn't really like it when you make jokes about, her new haircut or whatever it is. Just maybe you want to ease up, and maybe they know her. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought I was being funny. I'll stop. Sometimes it doesn't always have malicious intent. Sometimes it's just somebody that doesn't know when to stop joking. So hopefully, people have a good grasp on that in the workplace by now, but sometimes it just takes you speaking up to that person. Okay, we're gonna move on from this.
That's the sad thing about today's society, is like nobody wants to, like, if you see somebody getting like bullied or, and they're in a situation and that you could help, but like today's society, people just like don't want to help. They just don't want to get involved, and they don't want the drama, and they're just like, I got my own problems, and they don't even acknowledge that person right there is potentially in a situation that, could
Absolutely.
lead to like, like suicidal stuff or, whatever. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know. Personally, I've always been the type that, like, if I see somebody sitting there bullying somebody, like, I'm not just going to sit there and and watch it. Like it doesn't just hurt them. I've been in situations where like it has nothing to do with me, and it actually makes me like, it hurts me, if that makes sense. And I'm like, you know what? No, I feel like I'm getting bullied right now, dude. It's not gonna happen. You know?
Right, and being that person that can stand up for people is so awesome and so important. So if you feel comfortable in that moment to stand up for that person, definitely do it. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, we're gonna move on from harassment. We're gonna talk about substance abuse. There's a couple slides on it, but should you ever be under the influence of drugs or alcohol on a work site or in a workplace ever?
No.
No.
Never.
Never, ever, ever, right? Especially if you're on a construction site where you have to operate tools and heavy machinery and things like that. Never, ever, ever. If you have a prescription that you are required to take every day, like that's different. Make sure your doctor knows about make sure your supervisor knows about any prescriptions that your doctor has prescribed you that you have to take, so that they're aware of maybe any effects it might have on you. But if you are like smoking weed before your shift, or you're drinking alcohol on the shift, or you're doing some other drugs that are definitely going to impair you, that is just terms for immediate dismissal from your job. You can get fired on the job, on the spot, rightfully so, because that is a major, major safety hazard. Okay, zero tolerance, especially in a construction workplace. I would say maybe the only job that you could ever get away with, being on drugs is if you worked at a pot shop. I would say that's probably the only one. They kind of expect you to test the products at that point. But other than that, I'd say no, not really. There is one more slide. They talk about some like other what drugs do to you, but we're not going to go over it. Okay, moving on to leadership. A leader, we have talked about what a leader is. We've talked about what we think is most important in a leader. We did that in our civics class in the beginning of the cohort. That's how we picked our awesome leaders that we have in our leadership coalition that we have. So these are things that you guys have also identified as being important. You lead by example as a leader, right? A leader doesn't tell people what to do and then not follow suit. A leader sticks with the people that he is leading or she is leading, and they're not afraid to do that job that they've asked, right? So if you've got a boss that is just like, hey, you need to go do this task over there on that house, but he's like, oh, I would never go do that, but I make all my people. That's
Isn't it kind of like practice what you preach?
Totally. Practice what you preach, man. Don't go telling all your people to go do the grunt work that you would never do. You are right along with those people, doing that grunt work with them, leading by example, showing them how to do stuff hands-on. You don't tell people what to do. You show people what to do as a leader, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like first in the charge, last in the retreat.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you want to be that person that's right there next to them. People want that leader that can show them what's going on. They don't want somebody who just tells them what to do. That's no fun, and that's not a good leader.
And that goes back to like what Billy said earlier. Like I actually really liked what Billy said, like the first one in and the last one out.
Yeah.
That's some bomb ass leadership skills right there.
That's a leader. Absolutely. That's how you prove yourself. You exhibit drive, you're persistent, you don't just give up after something goes wrong. You troubleshoot, you problem solve. You're that first person there to try to figure it out. You motivate other people. Maybe you're self-motivated and that's awesome. But you also go in and you motivate other people and you help them, you help that drive. Say, did you have something else to add, or were you just holding your hand there? No, he didn't. Okay.
Are you talking to me?
No, I thought Isaiah had his hand up, but then he muted.
Oh.
So you are, as a leader, you're often organized. You're not all over the place. You're not chaotic. You are organized. You're structured. You know exactly how to help people, what needs to happen that day, and you have self-confidence. Most leaders are not in the corner, shying away from other people, not sure what to tell them. Most leaders are confident in themselves, and they go and they show by example, and they're confident. Awesome ways to motivate somebody else as a leader. Praising good work. I can't even explain to you how important it is to praise your workers. I mean, if you guys have ever gotten praise on the job, I mean, I'm even a person that likes a little bit of praise, and I would say that my coworkers and my boss is awesome at that. We are all really supportive of each other. We're like, hey, oh my gosh, you did that thing for me, and you are so awesome. You just killed that spreadsheet you made. Like giving that awesome positive feedback keeps people coming back. Have you ever heard the quote, people don't leave their jobs, they leave their managers? Have you heard that before? Is that familiar? Yeah, I see some shaking heads, some nodding heads.
No,
yeah.
What did you say?
People don't, when people don't quit their jobs. People quit their managers. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
haven't,
know
but
this
that makes
person
sense.
that's worked at the Dick's for like, I don't know, the last 5-6 years. And
Mhm.
I was like, why are you leaving? You worked there for so long. And they were just, oh, 'cause Kim, I don't like her. I was
Yep.
just,
If you've got a leader that doesn't lead by example, that doesn't really praise you, that just kind of gives you a bunch of criticism and leaves you be, and it's just not a very positive work environment with that person, you're going to quit that job. Maybe the job was fine and you kind of like the job, but you know what? You need a good person to work with. You need a good leader that helps you out and praises you and gives you lots of positive encouragement. People are going to stay with a manager at a bad job, a good manager at a bad job, before they stay at a good job with a bad manager, right? So if you can be that awesome leader, you're going to keep your employees. You're going to keep those people staying at your job. You're not going to have as much turnover if you're an awesome leader and awesome. Also, good leaders, they encourage others. They provide a challenging environment. You know, people want to learn and people want to be able to change and get new skill sets and grow in their professional careers. And so giving that opportunity for people to advance and get that challenging environment is really important as well. And then reward, reward, reward. Even just a pat on the shoulder and saying, you did so good at your job today. I'm so lucky to have you as an employee. Something as simple as that can change a person's day around, right? That definitely happens for me. I know that if I get a good little praise for the day, it just changes your whole day and makes you really happy and proud to work at where you're at. Mhm.
So like this is kind of an example of literally what you just said.
Yeah.
So like back in Idaho, like my old school, right? My old school literally had one of the highest suicide rates in the whole USA.
Wow.
And it was basically filled with a bunch of rich, preppy white kids. Like kids were showing up in Mustangs and Humvees and shit like that to school.
Right.
And if you didn't have like buckled jeans and Vans and all that nice clothes and stuff like that on and whatever, then, you know, you were going to get bullied. And me, I had like my soles of my shoes were coming off and shit like that. And I got on the football team. That was my way in, like, to not getting fucked with anymore. And my football team were such dicks, dude, that like when you know how like when at the end of a game, both teams will line up in a row and like shake hands and walk down the field? Yeah. My team were such assholes, dude. And I'm sorry my language, but I can't, like, I'm honest. Like,
Sure.
No other football team would shake their hands. I was the only one that got my
Really?
hand shook. Because I was always, even though we beat them and, you know, we were doing all that stuff, I was always helping up the other teammate and telling them, yo, good job, man. Keep your head in the game and shit like that. And I don't know. It earned me a lot of respect, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does.
Even though they weren't my team, and I did it to my teammates, of course, but like, even though they weren't my team and they were my enemy, you know, I still did it, you know, because
Absolutely.
it's just a game. And it's also a really good quality to have, man. People look at you like, wow.
I want to work for that guy, or I want to go and be on that guy's team because he's helpful and he's positive. Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that example, Travis.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for the PowerPoints. That's it for the knowledge in chapter 7 and 8. So thank you for sticking with me for the last 3 classes. I know it's a lot of time. One of the classes booted us out after 40 minutes. And so I'm glad we figured that issue out so that we can stick around. So now we're going to do a little chapter review. So we're going to do a little module review here. And I've kind of, I have the exams in front of me here. And I've kind of shaped these questions based off of what kind of questions are on the exam so that we can kind of do a little review and make sure you guys are ready to take it next week, okay? So we're going to go question by question here. I don't want to spend too much time on each question. Once we feel like we have a good solid understanding, we're going to move right along so that this doesn't take forever, okay? But you guys are welcome to unmute yourselves now and have a little discussion about each of these questions. So think way back to early last week, we did chapter 7 and we talked all about communication styles, right? How we communicate, communication channels, why it's important to communicate well and effectively, okay? So first question here, how is noise best defined? We had a whole conversation about what noise is and how it affects communication. So how is noise defined?
they say that you're not supposed to be more than, I think it was 5 to 10 feet.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 5 to like 10 feet. I think you're right.
Yeah,
there.
you're not supposed to be 5 to 10 feet apart if you're trying to work with someone on a project, and there's not supposed to be any music going or anything like that, so you can
Yeah.
hear the other person speak.
You
And
Yeah, there you go.
the reason why you're supposed to be 5 to 10 feet is so it's not too much of a distance between you guys, so you can hear the other person. Like if something were to
Exactly.
fall or something, you could tell them, "Hey, that's falling, watch out." And
Exactly.
I don't know about you guys, but like my mom or like anyone like older than me, like they would not talk to me if I was like trying to talk to them from like the living room and they were in their room. Like, yeah, like if I
Yeah.
was like,
You need to come out here and talk to me in person. Don't shout
like,
at me.
if I was trying to get my mom's attention and I'd yell from the other room, she wouldn't answer me. I would have to go in her room and make eye
Right.
contact
What my
with
mom
her.
always did was she'd call my name, and if I said what, she would say, "Who are you saying what to?" Like,
Yeah, that's the
You get out here when I call your name. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's really not leaving that space for anything to interfere with what you're talking about, right? And remember that it's more than just physical noise, like loud noises. It's having stereotypes in your head, or it's not being willing to listen. That's considered noise. If you're not willing to listen to somebody, or you're angry and you've got emotions, then you're not going to be able to hear that person what they're saying as well, if you're letting emotions cloud your ability to listen. Right, so noise is defined as literally anything that could interfere with what you're talking about or trying to figure out. Doesn't just have to literally mean physical noises. So good job, guys. This one's going to be probably pretty quick. If you're folding your arms in front of you, how does that make you seem to other people?
Upset.
body posture.
That's
Right,
all
Zay?
body language.
Body language, right? If you're folding your arms like this, makes you look upset. Yeah.
Yeah, the only way like you can look like you're not upset is it's probably cold outside, but
Yeah.
Right, if you're like cold and like shivering, that's different.
but if you were just to do that, like most
I
of
know
the time,
this.
it's you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello?
There's a certain term. It's like, God, what the hell? It's I'm gonna get back to that. It's like bad.
Hey, what's on, guys?
It's bad body posture.
Hey, Sage, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Sage? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good.
Cutting in and out.
Okay, cutting in and out. Interesting.
She's cutting in and out. She was.
Can you?
for a second.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, it's not cutting in and out. Okay, it's not cutting in and out for
Good
me. So
now.
but it was happening on my computer before. So I hope you guys can all hear me. But we're gonna power through
I'm
it.
gonna leave and come back.
Okay, sounds good. I'll admit you back again. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on really quick. If you don't understand what a speaker is saying, so if I'm stand up in the front of the classroom and you don't understand what I'm talking about, what should you do?
Probably ask questions.
Nice. That's what I would say. Anybody else?
Yeah, like back to what I was saying earlier, that like if you don't stand up and ask, like if you're confused and you don't stand up for yourself, you're not gonna get what you need at the end of the day.
Right.
Not really need what you need, but what you want, like
right.
If you don't stand up, if you're confused on something and you don't stand up and get it clarified, like you're gonna be sitting there like with your hands and you know what I'm saying? Like you're not gonna know what to do.
Yep, you're right. So definitely make sure that you raise your hand and you ask that question. For the sake of time, we're going to skip over some of these questions. I can post these questions. Would you like me to post these so that you can practice them?
Yeah.
Okay. I can definitely do that because I don't have time. I have another meeting at 11, so I don't have time to go over every single one. So I will post them so that you guys can practice them before tomorrow, okay?
What are we practicing them for? Are we doing this on paper?
No, we're just discussing it right now. So this is a review for the test that you have next week. You have 2 for chapter 7 and chapter 8.
Okay.
So this is review for that to make sure you guys are all aware of what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're literally just discussing. You don't have to write anything down right now if you don't want to. Okay. How about let's skip to this one. What is an example of a document that you may need to read as a construction professional?
Ooh.
A set of rules, right?
Okay, yeah.
They don't
Or
call
like
them blueprints
strict
anymore, do
policies. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Policies are going to be one of them. What
Yeah,
else? Specifically, like on a construction site, what might you need?
they don't call them blueprints anymore, do they?
I think the textbook calls them construction drawings. I think that that's a term that they've used just because it's more like encompassing of
Yeah.
kind of beyond just blueprints, but all types of drawings that you might need. So yeah, that's one. Anything else?
Like you said, in a professional way, right?
Yeah, like on a job site, on a construction site as a worker.
So basically, like, as long as you can understand, like, and make sure everybody understands, like, right? Like, some
Yeah.
rules, and that's a
definitely.
professional.
Sure, rules. Something that's the book specifically talked about was code books. You might need like a code book to help you with instructions on like how to use something, right? So kind of specific instructions and things like that.
Certain specific ways, and like, because everything has got to get done in like a specific way, especially different things. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
Like walls and roofs and 2x4s and flooring, like
Nice. Speaking of instructions, if you have a set of instructions in front of you, how should you read them? Just in general.
Carefully.
I'm gonna say from left to right.
From left to right or from top to bottom?
I'm kidding. I'm just messing with you.
No, but really though, from left to right, but really like you don't want to jump around, right? Because step number 10 is not going to help you if you don't know what step number 5 was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then maybe should I read them halfway and then stop and not finish the rest of the instructions?
No. That's no.
Right. So maybe
and none of that little speed reading stuff, because that
Yeah,
right, read them carefully. Yeah. Good job, Zay. I like that too.
See the other kids in your classroom, their eyeballs all going
they're
down
just
the
like,
path. It's like, what are you doing?
You're like, totally. Yeah, so read them, all of the instructions, read them carefully. I like that.
I'm over here reading the same sentence and shit.
Right. And let's see, what's it called? Or what should you do before you turn in like an essay or a document or something to make sure that there are no errors in it? Do you know what that's called?
Well, like if you were to turn into an essay, that's what a rough draft would be for.
Proofreading. There you go.
Sage killed it. Yep, proofreading it.
She did.
That's what it's called.
We're
You check for errors.
A virtual knuckle bump, Sage. Boom.
Virtual knuckle bump. Oh my God, so cute. We can't be in person, but we can do virtual knuckle bump. Yeah, it's called proofreading, and having another person proofread for you is awesome as well, because somebody that isn't thinking about what it's about, they can just look for those little grammar errors or period errors or things like that. Okay, chapter 7 is a pretty quick review. Chapter 8 is a little bit longer. I'm going to talk about some things specifically that maybe the PowerPoints didn't talk about. So this first one here, what is a company's mission statement? Have you guys heard of that? Do you know what that is?
Is that like their idea of the project? I don't know.
It's a little broader than that, I'd say. Does anyone else have an idea
What they
of what the
stand
mission
for.
statement is? Oh, I like that. Okay.
Oh, okay.
What they stand for. Mm-hmm.
No, that makes sense, I guess.
Right. It's what they stand for, what they're all about. A word that the book likes to use is their philosophy, right?
Okay,
so it's what they're all about. It's kind of what they stand for, what they do, stuff like that. Yeah, that's an important one. Ooh, this is a good one too. When you're looking for a new job, remember chapter 8 is all about employability skills, so we're shifting gears from communication. When you're looking for a new job, when's a good time to do research on a company that you want to apply for? So you see a job that you might want to apply for. When's a good time to do the research on the company? What do you guys think?
As soon as possible. I don't know.
As soon as possible?
I didn't give anybody my fucking opinion because I knew I had no fucks to give about anybody's situation.
Something else
Yeah,
happening.
you do it online. You would just look up the name of the company and then let
I
your
would
line go
say,
for.
I don't know. I would say like
I'm
when
getting
you
to
have
the point
free
where
time,
I am.
maybe, or like, is it asking like when should you do it, or like?
Yeah,
what
like
should
are
you-
we trying to do it? Should you research all about that company like after you've received maybe an offer? Or should you do it maybe before you even apply? Or should you do it after you apply? When do you think is a good time
You
to
should
do
do
that
it before
research?
you
Before
apply.
you
You
apply.
should do it after you receive an offer.
Yeah,
Where the hell did
I was
Alex just come
thinking-
from? He just came out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah,
I was
Alex is here
thinking
now.
a little too hard on that.
I'm a
Yeah, so-
ghost, dude. It's what I do.
He's a ghost. Yeah, the idea here is that before you even apply to a job, you should make sure that's a company you'd want to even work for.
Yeah.
Right? So Billy nailed it on the head there. Make sure that you're doing that research before you even submit an application, because you don't even, you want to make sure it's a good company you want to work for. That's
I
what
was
they're trying to get at there.
Way too hard on that.
And
Right,
if
I
out
know,
of the
some of these
blue
you
they
do.
send you an offer, look into the job and look if you want to work there.
Exactly. I love that. Once they extend that offer, do more research, dig in even deeper, make sure it's something you'd want to accept. Love it.
Yeah.
Let's see. What kind of jobs should you even be searching for, do you think?
Jobs that suit you.
Flipping burgers.
You think that you would excel in. Don't just do a
Yeah.
job to stay alive or afloat. Do a job that would make you happy, that you would truly love.
What if I just got my GED and the job requires a master's degree? Should I apply to that one?
No.
No, you gotta go
Maybe
to
not.
college.
Right, maybe not. So there are certain things that you can sometimes get away with in a job when you're applying for a job. Like, I have a bachelor's degree. They say, so we want a bachelor's degree plus 3 years of experience in this really specific thing. It's like, okay, well, I only have a year and a
The
half of
three-
experience in that
The
thing.
3 years
But-
experience could be looked past.
Totally.
Now, the bachelor's couldn't, but there is some jobs that require you to be in school or go through school or something like that.
Exactly. There are
There's been
some
a
jobs
couple
that really
where
require
I
that.
put in the process of getting my GED.
There you go. Yeah, so if it requires a GED and you don't exactly have it yet, I would say you're about to get it. You're about to get that GED, so still apply, and they're probably willing to work with you if they know that you're on track to get it. Right, so there are certain things that could totally be in the realm of possibility for you. Okay, I don't have all the experience that they want. And maybe they wanted this really specific class in my bachelor's degree that I never took. But, I have a lot of experience in this area, so I think they could probably overlook that one class that I didn't take. Right, so there are certain things you're like, I could probably qualify. I know how to do this job. I think I could qualify for it. It never hurts to apply for a job. The worst that they can do is not contact you or tell you no, right? That's the absolute worst that will happen. But in general, I'm definitely not applying to jobs that require a doctorate degree, right? Because that's not something that I have that qualification for. So yeah, as Travis said, kind of stick to what you are able to do in your skill set that kind of suits you and that you want to do. I like that.
Yeah.
This is another important one. Just has a really simple answer. I hope you guys know it. What do most construction employers do before they agree to hire you on? Every construction employer.
They look into your
Background checks?
background, your resume,
Some of them look into your background. They'll read your resume. Some of them do a background check.
experience.
Work experience, yeah.
Drug
Some of them
test?
will look into most of them look into your work experience. But what's something that they do? They're like, wow, I absolutely love this person. Their resume is awesome. Their work experience is great. I want to hire them on, but I have to do one thing first. What are they going to do? Every construction job is going to do this.
Fingerprints, drug test? I don't know.
There it is. You said it. It's a drug test. Prepare to be
all
drug tested.
construction drug tests.
You could be the absolute best candidate. You have all the perfect experience. You have a kick-ass resume, and you are ready to go. And you're not going to get that job if you fail a drug test, right? Just be prepared. I know you guys know that, but be prepared for that. Okay.
Well,
Let's get to this one. How does a person who is closed-minded typically affect a team?
When you're closed-minded, you only think
Because
about
they
yourself,
don't
really.
think as a team.
Yeah.
They think, okay, so someone that's closed-minded that thinks like, that's really hard for me because I'm not like, sometimes I am, but a lot of times I'll work as a team, but sometimes like if my team's losing and I'm like holding up the team, or I'm doing more, putting in more effort than someone else, it's hard for me to work as a team if they're not going to put in the same effort as me.
Yeah.
So there's
Right.
some points
Damn.
where it's good, but there's some points where it's not. To be closed-minded, and you can't look at a project by yourself when you're supposed to be working on it with 6 other people.
Exactly, right. So you can't be closed-minded. A person who's closed-minded isn't going to be open to change, right? They're not going to be open to that problem solving.
You're not
They
gonna
might,
trust it.
That'd be like
yeah,
Tom going on to our job site and being like, looking at himself, and then we go on to the job site and he like barely knows, we barely know what we're doing because he had it in his perspective,
exactly.
and he only knows from his mind what you guys are supposed to be doing.
Right, and he's not trusting other people's ideas, and he just wants to do it his way, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Being closed-minded can affect you in real life in every situation.
Oh,
too, so.
absolutely. Right, not just construction site. Yeah, you're totally right. This is
But
something
yeah,
we talked about.
If Tom was closed-minded, he wouldn't care about teaching you guys. He would just do the job and
Yeah,
the work
he would.
himself.
So
You
true.
just do the
Yeah.
job and be like, let's get it done.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't even
Exactly.
Send you little shits
he says,
home.
I'm going to get it done. You guys can go away.
Right.
Yeah.
I have time for like 1 or 2 more questions before I gotta hop off. So Alex, I told you I'm gonna post these. I'm gonna mix them around a little bit, and I might reword a couple things. But I'll post these questions for him to review. But another question here: what issue we talked about this a lot today. What issue often contributes to project delays? What's that like main issue that keeps a project from moving along?
People not showing absenteeism or whatever.
There it is. Nice word. Absenteeism. People not showing up to the job site. Okay.
Good job, bro.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the main outlook on it.
Okay, skipping down to number 16. What is the first step to solving a conflict with a coworker? We talked about this. It's was like way back in the first class that we had, or second class.
Resolve it. Try to resolve it, and if it doesn't work out, go to the higher person, and if that doesn't work out, call OSHA.
That's definitely part of that problem-solving process. If you
Be
were
civil.
in any of them, there were 5 steps to solving a problem. Remember, all the way down to, trying your solution, and if the solution doesn't work, going back and trying something new. But what was the very first step to solving a conflict?
Be civilized about it. Be professional.
That's part of it.
Okay.
Boy, I know this.
It's kind of a trick question, I'm not gonna lie to you.
To not address it. Keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. No. This one, remember, it's the very first step to problem solving, and it's defining the problem or admitting that there's a problem in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, in order to even solve a problem, before you even get into how to fix it, you got to admit that there's an issue. You got to define what the issue is. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. So yeah, that was kind of a trick question. That is one of the test questions, so make sure you guys do it. I have to hop off because I have to create a new Zoom meeting at 10:45. So I will post these questions for you guys to review. So we're going to be taking this test next week. So review these questions. Make sure you guys are ready to go. How are you feeling about the tests?
Yeah, I can do it.
Overly
You guys can
confident.
too.
Overwhelmingly confident.
Okay,
Yeah.
I expect 100% from you.
He's so overwhelmingly confident. It's like leaking. And
I love that. I love that you're overwhelmingly confident. I think that's so. I'm going to post the questions. Thank you guys for being here today and listening to it. We have a lot of people in the class, and that is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and stop the